September 17th, 1944. Arnhem, Holland. The sky is full of parachutes. White canopies drift over Dutch fields. Gliders scrape into landing zones, and thousands of British airborne troops spill into enemy territory with one mission. Take the bridge, hold it, wait for the tanks. It sounds simple on paper. A bridge at Arnhem, a fast armoured column from the south, a bold airborne landing behind German lines, one final thrust across Holland, then into Germany. The war might be shortened by months, maybe even ended before Christmas. That is the promise. That is the dream. That is Operation Market Garden. But from the first hour, the dream begins to crack, because Arnhem is not empty. The Germans are not broken, and the bridge is much farther away than it looks on a map. By evening, Lieutenant Colonel John Frost and his British 2nd Parachute Battalion have done what almost no one else has managed to do. They have reached the Arnhem Road Bridge. At 8 p.m, Frost's men seize the north end of the bridge over the Niederrhein River. They are tired, exposed, and far ahead of much of the rest of the division. But for one brief moment, it looks like the plan might still work. The bridge is there. The objective is in sight. The men are in position. Now they only have to hold. But hold against what? That is the question no one has answered properly. Frost believes the German defenders near the bridge are mostly second-rate troops. His expectation is that his battalion can overpower them, secure the crossing, and wait until the rest of the British 1st Parachute Brigade arrives. But Arnhem is about to reveal a truth the planners have ignored. The enemy here is not second-rate. The enemy is awake, and the enemy is moving fast. Frost's paratroopers occupy nearby buildings around the northern end of the bridge. Windows become firing positions. Doorways become barricades. Staircases become defensive lines. Men drag ammunition into rooms, set up Bren guns, prepare PIA anti-tank weapons, and watch the road for German movement. Across the bridge lies the southern end. If they can take that too, they can control the whole crossing. So they attack. The first attempt fails. German troops in a pillbox stop them cold. The paratroopers reorganize, gather themselves, and try again. Again, the attack is beaten back. The British pull away from the southern end. The British remains only half in their hands, and half a bridge is not victory. Half a bridge is a countdown. 2 hours later, Frost sends forward a flamethrower team. Their mission is direct and terrifying. Remove the pillbox. The team moves quietly through the darkness, working close enough to feel the enemy position before they strike. Then fire erupts. The pillbox is destroyed. For a moment, the problem seems solved, but Arnhem does not give gifts without taking something back. The flames spread. Nearby buildings catch fire. A maintenance hut being used as an ammunition depot ignites. The explosion throws fire into the night. The bridge itself begins to burn. The heat becomes so intense that any further attempt to seize the whole bridge is impossible until morning. The men who came to capture Arnhem now stand beside their burning prize. The bridge is theirs, but not all of it, and not safely. This is where the hellish fight at Arnhem truly begins. Not with a clean victory, not with the sound of British tanks arriving from the south, but with flames licking at the bridge, German forces gathering in the darkness, and a small airborne battalion realizing that help may not come quickly. Frost expects the rest of the 1st Brigade to arrive the next morning. The rest of the British 1st Airborne Division is expected later, followed by the Polish 1st Parachute Brigade after that. The larger plan assumes that British XXX Corps will drive north, cross the captured bridges, and reach Arnhem in time. But plans are always cleanest before the shooting starts. And this plan depends on too many things happening perfectly. The airborne troops must land safely. They must organize quickly. They must march several miles through unknown enemy resistance. The radios must work. The German response must be slow. The bridge must stay open. And XXX Corps must race up a single narrow road through Holland before the Germans cut it. One road, one bridge after another, one timetable, one gamble. At Arnhem, the gamble is already turning against them. The British 1st Airborne Division has landed far from its main objective. Some drop and landing zones are up to 8 miles from the bridges the division is expected to capture. Frost's 2nd Battalion takes the southern route along the Niederrhein, while other battalions move by different routes toward Arnhem. That distance matters. Every yard between the landing zones and the bridge gives the Germans time to understand, time to block roads, time to gather troops, time to turn scattered resistance into a wall. The paratroopers have landed brilliantly, but not close enough, and in airborne warfare, distance can kill as surely as bullets. The Germans react faster than expected. SS Captain Sepp Kraft, commanding the 16th SS Panzer Grenadier Depot and Reserve Battalion near Wolfhies, quickly realizes what is happening. With only a few hundred men, he blocks 2 of the most direct routes toward Arnhem before the British advance can properly unfold. That single decision helps split the British attack. Frost gets through, others do not. And suddenly the men at the bridge are not the spearhead of a growing force. They are an island. The bridge becomes a fortress. The buildings around it become the battlefield. There are no wide fields now. No elegant airborne maneuver. No clean textbook assault. There are rooms, stairwells, walls, windows, streets, and fires. British paratroopers dig into houses and offices, turning civilian buildings into defensive positions. They knock holes through walls. They move from room to room. They cover approaches with machine guns and rifles. Outside, German vehicles begin probing the area. Inside, Frost's men listen. Engines, boots, orders shouted in German, the crack of rifles, the deeper blast of heavier guns. The battle becomes close, personal, urban. A man can be alive in one room and dead in the next. A staircase can become a front line. A window can become a death sentence. A street corner can decide whether the bridge lives or falls. And still, Frost's men wait for the sound they need most. British tanks, corps, the relief column, the promise from the south. But the sound does not come, not yet. Far behind them, the rest of Market Garden is already struggling. The operation has fused 2 ideas together. Market, the airborne seizure of bridges, and Garden, the ground advance by XXX Corps through the captured corridor. American airborne divisions are assigned to bridges near Eindhoven and Nijmegen, while the British 1st Airborne is sent farthest north to Arnhem. Arnhem is the final bridge, the last door, the farthest reach of the plan. That makes Frost's position more important and more dangerous. If the bridge holds, the road into Germany may open. If the bridge falls, the entire northern end of the operation begins to collapse. That is the burden on the men at Arnhem. Not simply to survive, to hold the future of the offensive inside a handful of burning buildings, but the Germans around them are not the weak rear area troops many expected. The SS Panzer Corps, including the 9th SS Hohenstaufen and 10th SS Fronsberg Panzer Divisions, had retreated into Holland after fighting in Normandy. These formations were under strength and battered, but they were experienced, and their presence near Arnhem created a far greater danger than Allied planners had properly accepted. That is the cruel twist. The British did not drop onto an empty rear area. They dropped near veteran German armoured troops recovering, reorganising, and still capable of improvising a defence. Arnhem was supposed to be a surprise. Instead, it becomes a meeting with danger. The warning signs had existed. Polish General Stanisław Sosabowski had questioned assumptions about German weakness in the target area. Dutch resistance reports warned that SS Panzer divisions had appeared near Arnhem, but British planners distrusted some Dutch reports because the resistance had previously been infiltrated by the Germans. Reconnaissance photographs also showed armoured vehicles, but the concern was dismissed. The result is devastating. The men on the ground pay for the doubts dismissed in planning rooms. At the bridge, Frost's battalion is now trapped in the consequence. They have done their part. They reached the objective. They captured the north end. They held their ground. But the operation around them is failing to keep pace. The radios begin to fail. The wooded landscape and limited equipment reduce communications. British units struggle to coordinate. Major General Robert Urquhart, commander of the 1st Airborne Division, goes looking for his commanders and ends up trapped behind German lines in an attic for nearly 2 days, leaving the division without his direction during a critical period. For troops at the bridge, this means confusion. No clear picture, no certain relief, no easy way to know whether help is hours away or already impossible. Night settles over Arnhem. The bridge still burns, German pressure grows. Frost's men settle deeper into the buildings. Some clean weapons, some check ammunition. Some stare into streets where shadows move. Some wait near windows, knowing the next German attack could come with infantry, armoured cars, self-propelled guns, or tanks. They are paratroopers, light infantry, men with courage, rifles, grenades, PI aids, and a mission that has become almost impossible. And now the real battle begins, because taking the bridge was only the first act. Holding it will become the nightmare. The Germans will attack from the streets, they will fire into the buildings, they will bring armour close enough to blast walls apart. They will squeeze the perimeter room by room, house by house, hour by hour, and Frost's men will answer from shattered windows with everything they have. Arnhem is no longer just a bridge. It is a burning trap at the end of a road that may never open, a place where an entire airborne dream is being tested by smoke, steel, and time. The British came to seize a crossing. Instead, they are about to fight for survival in a city that refuses to fall quickly, and somewhere to the south, British armour is still trying to reach them. Too slowly, too far away, too late. Morning comes to Arnhem, but it does not bring relief. It brings smoke. The bridge is scarred by fire. Buildings near the northern end are blackened and shattered. Glass lies across floors. Plaster dust hangs in rooms where British paratroopers have turned offices and houses into fighting positions. The men are tired already, and the battle has barely begun. Lieutenant Colonel John Frost's battalion still holds the north end of the bridge. That fact matters. It means the operation is not dead. Not yet. A small British force has reached the prize. They are exactly where Market Garden needs them to be. But they are also alone, and every hour they remain alone, the bridge becomes less like an objective and more like a trap. The paratroopers look south, somewhere beyond the roads, villages, canals, and German blocking positions. XX Corps is supposed to be coming. British tanks, infantry, artillery. The long steel spear that will drive up the highway, link the airborne bridges together, and break into Germany. That is the promise the men at Arnhem are holding on to. They are not supposed to fight here forever. They are supposed to hold until relieved. The difference between those two things is everything. At first, hope still exists. Every distant rumble might be British armour. Every burst of gunfire from the south might mean the relief column is closer. Every rumour becomes important. They're coming. They're near Nijmegen. They'll be here soon. But Arnhem is beginning to teach a cruel lesson. Distance on a map is not distance in war. The road to Arnhem is narrow, too narrow. The entire ground advance depends on a single elevated highway running through Holland, bordered in places by wet ground, ditches, canals, and fields that make movement difficult. If the Germans cut the road, block a bridge, destroy a crossing, or delay the column anywhere along the route, everything behind it slows down, and everything ahead of it suffers. Arnhem is the farthest point, the last bridge, the place with the least room for delay. For Frost's men, delay is measured in ammunition, casualties, and shrinking options. The rest of the British 1st Airborne Division is still trying to reach the bridge, but German resistance has thickened between the landing zones and Arnhem. The paratroopers who landed west of the city expected to move quickly. Instead, they run into roadblocks, machine gun fire, armoured vehicles, and organised resistance far stronger than expected. The routes into Arnhem begin closing. One battalion is slowed, another is blocked, another is forced into fighting that bleeds time and men. The bridge is still there, but the division is being split apart before it can concentrate. This is one of the great tragedies of Arnhem. Frost reached the bridge, but too few reached it with him. Around the bridge, the Germans begin testing the British perimeter. At first, these attacks are probing movements. Small groups, vehicles nosing forward, infantry trying to locate the edges of the British defence. But each probe teaches the Germans something: where the British are strong, where they are weak, which buildings are held, which streets are covered, where a vehicle can approach, where a gun can be brought up. The German response becomes more deliberate with every hour. The British paratroopers answer from windows and doorways. A Brenngum opens from an upper floor. Rifle fire cracks from a shattered room. A PIA team waits behind a corner, listening for the heavy growl of an approaching armoured vehicle. The men at Arnhem do not have tanks. They do not have heavy artillery at their backs. They do not have endless ammunition. They have what airborne troops can carry, drag or scavenge. That makes every shot matter. The bridge area becomes a maze of small battles. A German vehicle pushes too close and is hit. Infantry rush a building and are driven back. A British position is blasted by cannon fire. Men pull wounded comrades away from windows and down staircases. A room catches fire. A wall collapses. Someone shouts for more ammunition. Someone else calls for a medic. The battle is no longer about one clean line. It is everywhere at once. Frost's men understand that the bridge is the key, but the Germans understand it too, and they begin to bring heavier weapons. Armoured cars, self-propelled guns, tanks, anything that can fire directly into the British-held buildings. The paratroopers' defensive positions are strong against infantry, but buildings are not fortresses forever. Walls can be broken, roofs can burn, windows can become traps. A house that protects a man at dawn can bury him by afternoon. The Germans do not need to storm every room immediately. They can squeeze, they can burn, they can blast, they can wait, because time is on their side. That is the terrible imbalance at Arnhem. The British are waiting for help. The Germans are waiting for the British to run out. Inside the perimeter, Frost's men begin to feel the cost. Food is limited. Water is difficult. Medical supplies are stretched. Ammunition is counted more carefully. Wounded men are gathered wherever there is space and cover. But cover changes quickly when the enemy begins firing into buildings at close range. A soldier who was safe 10 minutes ago may suddenly be lying beneath falling bricks. A medic moving across a room may be exposed through a new hole torn open by cannon fire. Nothing stays stable. Still, the paratroopers hold. That is what makes the fight so brutal. They are not collapsing. They are not running. They are not giving up the bridge, because the situation has become impossible. They keep fighting from building to building, floor to floor, window to window. The Germans advance, are stopped, return with heavier fire, and try again. The British absorb the blows and keep answering, but the situation beyond the bridge is worsening. Major General Robert Urquhart, commander of the 1st Airborne Division, is not where he needs to be. Communications are poor. Radios fail to reach properly through the terrain and urban clutter. Units are scattered and fighting separate battles without a full picture of what is happening. The Airborne Division is becoming blind. And a blind division cannot easily rescue its own spearhead. The men at the bridge do not know all of this. They know only pieces. They know the rest of the brigade has not arrived. They know German pressure is increasing. They know the road south is not open. They know the bridge must still be held. And they know the sound of British tanks has not come. That missing sound becomes its own kind of fear. Not panic, not yet, but a quiet question inside every man. Where are they? Meanwhile, German commanders begin to understand the scale of the opportunity. If the British at the bridge can be crushed before XXX Corps arrives, the northern end of Market Garden will fail. The Germans do not need to defeat the entire Allied army at once. They need to delay the ground column, block the roads, prevent reinforcement, destroy Frost's isolated force. Then Arnhem will remain in German hands. That is why every hour matters. Every German roadblock south of Arnhem is not just a local obstacle. It is a weapon aimed at Frost's battalion. Every delay at Nijmegen, every jammed road, every demolished bridge, every German counterattack along the corridor, all of it reaches Arnhem in the form of silence. No tanks, no relief, no breakthrough. At the bridge, the men keep watching the sudden approach. The road is there, the way is there, but the relief column is not. By now, the battle has changed from bold seizure to desperate endurance. The first hours had been about capturing the bridge. Now the fight is about whether a small force can survive long enough for a plan much larger than itself to catch up. That is the cruelty of airborne operations. The men dropped from the sky may seize an objective with speed and surprise, but once they land, they become light infantry behind enemy lines. If relief comes quickly, they are heroes of a daring success. If relief is delayed, they become isolated men, surrounded by a growing enemy. At Arnhem, the second future is taking shape. The Germans begin tightening the ring. Their fire becomes more accurate, their attacks more coordinated. The British-held buildings are marked by smoke muzzle flashes and return fire. German guns begin smashing those buildings one by one. Inside, men shift positions. If one room becomes impossible, they move to another. If a window is too dangerous, they fire from deeper inside. If a wall breaks, they use the rubble. If a building burns, they pull out if they can. The defense becomes improvised survival. And yet, the bridge does not fall. That is the remarkable thing. The Germans have armour. They have reinforcements. They have the ability to attack from multiple directions. But Frost's men cling to the north end with a stubbornness that turns the area into a killing ground. Every German move costs something. Every street is watched. Every approach is dangerous. The paratroopers are isolated, but they are not helpless. They are disciplined, experienced, and fighting with the knowledge that the entire operation depends on them. But courage does not refill ammunition. Courage does not heal wounds. Courage does not make radios work. Courage does not make tanks arrive faster. And that is why Arnhem becomes more tragic with every passing hour. The men are doing what they were asked to do. The problem is that the plan around them is failing to deliver what it promised. As the second day deepens, the bridge area looks less like a captured objective and more like a battlefield ruin. Smoke rises from buildings, vehicles burn near roads, dead and wounded lie where they fell. The air smells of brick dust, fire, fuel, and cordite. The paratroopers are thirsty, exhausted, and blackened by smoke. But still, they hold. Somewhere outside the perimeter, German forces are preparing stronger attacks. Somewhere west of Arnhem, other British airborne units are fighting their own desperate battle to reach the bridge. Somewhere to the south, XXX Corps is still pushing up the corridor. Everything is moving, but not fast enough. That is the nightmare of Arnhem. Everyone is fighting toward the same point. But the point is, already being crushed, night approaches again. The men at the bridge settle into shattered rooms. They listen to German movement outside. They check the last of their ammunition. They tend to the wounded as best they can. They look south one more time. Still no tanks, still no relief. Still only fire, darkness, and the bridge. And now Frost's battalion faces the truth that every airborne soldier fears most. They have reached the objective, but the objective may become their grave. By the third day, Arnhem no longer looks like a captured bridgehead. It looks like a city being torn apart around a handful of men. The buildings near the north end of the bridge are cracked, burned, and riddled with bullet holes. Smoke rolls through broken windows. Floors are covered with brick dust, glass, empty cartridge cases, and blood. Every room has become a position. Every hallway has become a route of escape. Every window has become both a weapon and a risk. The British paratroopers have now been fighting far longer than they were meant to fight alone. Their faces are blackened by smoke. Their eyes are raw from lack of sleep. Their uniforms are dirty, torn, and stiff with sweat and dust. Some have not eaten properly. Some have barely slept. Some have been deafened by explosions inside the same buildings where they are trying to survive. But they are still holding. That is the part the Germans cannot ignore. The bridge has not fallen. The north end remains in British hands, and as long as Frost's men hold it, Arnhem remains a wound in the German defence. So the Germans increase the pressure. They bring up armoured vehicles and direct-fire weapons, not simply to attack the British positions, to destroy the buildings around them. One by one, a German gun fires from down the street. The shell hits the face of a building. Brick erupts inward. A room that had been a firing position becomes dust, flame, and screams. Men drag wounded away from the collapse. Someone tries to keep a Bren gun working. Someone else shouts for ammunition. Then another shell comes in, and another. This is no longer just infantry fighting. It is demolition by battle. The Germans have learned that storming every British-held building costs too much. So they try to break the buildings first, blast the walls, set fires, force the defenders out, crush them with steel and flame before closing in. Inside one house, a British section waits in near darkness. The windows have been smashed out. Curtains are gone. Furniture has been shoved against walls. Holes have been knocked through interior partitions, so men can move from room to room without stepping into the street. Outside, a German vehicle approaches. The sound is unmistakable. Engine. Tracks or wheels. Metal. The paratroopers freeze. A Pat team shifts into position. The weapon is awkward, heavy and hated by many who must use it. But against German armour at close range, it may be the only thing between survival and annihilation. The fire waits. Too soon, and the shot may miss. Too late, and the vehicle's gun will speak first. The German vehicle appears through smoke. The PIAT fires. A violent spring-driven thump. A bomb arcs out. Impact. Explosion. For a moment, everything disappears behind smoke and dust. Men cough. Someone cheers. Someone else tells him to shut up and reload. Because at Arnhem, no victory lasts more than a few seconds. The Germans come again. They always come again. The British have turned the bridge buildings into a fortress, but it is a fortress made of civilian walls and human endurance. There are no deep bunkers, no heavy tanks, no endless supply. The paratroopers are fighting inside homes, offices and ruined rooms never meant to resist sustained artillery and cannon fire. A ceiling collapses. A staircase becomes impassable. A room catches fire. A room catches fire. A wounded man is moved again. Then moved again. Then there is nowhere safer to put him. The medical situation becomes desperate. The wounded gather in cellars and lower rooms wherever the men think the next shell is least likely to land. Medics work with what they have. Bandages disappear quickly. Morphine becomes precious. Water is scarce. Men who would have been evacuated in a normal battle remain inside the perimeter. Their groans become part of the sound of the bridge. Gunfire outside. Shells hitting brick. Men calling for stretchers. Medics whispering reassurance they may not believe. And still, the defenders watch the road south. Still they listen for British armour. Still they hope, but hope is beginning to thin. The relief column is delayed. Nemasian has not opened quickly enough. The road north is blocked and contested. German forces are attacking the corridor behind the advancing tanks. The entire operation is stretched, like a rope under strain. At Arnhem, that strain becomes personal. It becomes a paratrooper counting his last magazines. It becomes a wounded man asking if the tanks are close. It becomes Frost's officers trying to hold together a perimeter that is being reduced by fire. The Germans now know the British force at the bridge is isolated. They understand that the rest of the division has not broken through to Frost. They understand that time is doing their work. So they tighten the grip. Attacks come from different directions. Infantry rushes through streets and gardens. Armoured cars probe along roads. Self-propelled guns fire point-blank into buildings. Snipers wait for movement. Machine guns sweep windows. The British answer with rifles, Brens, Stens, grenades, PIs, and whatever ammunition remains. There is no clean front line now. Only pockets of resistance. A house here, a corner there. A group of men on one floor, another group cut off across the street. Communication inside the perimeter becomes difficult. A runner crosses a street and is shot at from 3 directions. A message sent from one building to another may never arrive. A platoon may not know the building next to it has been abandoned until German fire begins coming from there. The bridge battle becomes a fight not only against the Germans, but against confusion. Where is the enemy? Who still holds that house? How much ammunition is left? Can the wounded be moved? Is anyone coming? That last question grows heavier by the hour. Is anyone coming? Outside Arnhem, other British airborne units are fighting to reach Frost, but the German blocking positions are too strong. Men push through streets, woods, and suburbs, only to be stopped by armour, machine guns, and artillery. The division that was supposed to gather at Arnhem is being trapped west of the city. Instead of one strong airborne force holding the bridge, there are now separate battles. Frost at the bridge, Urquhart's main force struggling around Oosterbeek. Polish airborne troops still not fully arrived. XXX Corps still fighting its way north. The plan has broken into pieces, and Frost's battalion is one of those pieces, surrounded at the most important point on the map. At the bridge, Lieutenant Colonel Frost continues to command as best he can, but the situation is deteriorating. The battalion's perimeter is shrinking. The buildings are being smashed apart. More men are wounded. More positions are lost. German fire grows closer. The defenders no longer think in terms of days. They think in hours, maybe minutes. A British soldier crouches near a window. He has fired from this room for most of the day. The wallpaper is torn away.